Hey everyone, we're in Unit 13, we're in Lesson 2, we're looking at circle graphs. This is an action lesson, so we're diving in a little deeper. We're going to take some of the knowledge that we've activated from the Minds On lesson and start applying it here, and I'll teach you a few things along the way. Alright, so you're going to take your guided note, paste it into your notebook, add today's date, get a sharp pencil, and we're ready to go. All right, let's take a look at what we've got here. So my eye is just automatically drawn to pictures, and so that's where I always look first. And I notice this colorful circle graph with the percentages, and there are labels over here that represent each of the colors, and these are favorite types of music. Okay, so question number 1 is, what conclusions can you draw from this circle graph? What information do you not know? Oh, okay. I'm gonna make this a little smaller. So I'm going to put it off to the side and have some space to work. All right, well, okay. So the largest wedge of this circle graph is the yellow, 33%, and that's rock. So rock is people's favorite. So I'm going to put number 1 here. And I'm just going to put some observations. So rock is the favorite. Okay. I think the least favorite is this gray one, which is classical. So I could say classical is the least favorite. Okay. What else do I notice? Well, this orange one, which is rap, and country, when I compare the two, it looks like country is about twice as popular as rap, because this rap wedge looks to be about half the size of this wedge, and that's about correct when I'm looking at the percentages. So I can say country is about twice. Clean that up a little. Is about twice as popular as rap. So it says here, what information do you not know? So I know the percentage of people, but I don't know who was surveyed. So I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna make a list. Who was surveyed? Was it like a class? Was it like people walking down the street? And actually, I also don't know how many people. I only know percentages. So there could have been 1,000 people asked. There could have been, I don't know, 10 people asked. I really don't know. So this isn't giving me all the information I'm looking for, but it does allow me to quickly compare the different categories. Okay, question 2 is survey 20 classmates about which of country, rap, classical, rock, or jazz music they prefer. Create a relative frequency table to show the results and the percent in each category. Okay, we're not going to actually do the survey. Instead, I'm going to give you some data. So I'm going to create a little chart, a little table. I'm going to call it music preference. And this is going to be from a class of students, a fictional class of students. So we're going to have a type, a frequency, and a percent in my table. Now I'm going to list the different kinds of music. So we had country, we had rap, classical, rock, and jazz. Okay, and frequency is the number of people who responded saying that that was their favorite type of music. So we're going to say there were 3 country, 12 rap, 1 classical, 4 rock. Let's go with 0 jazz. So that is a total of, I'm just going to put down here, total equals 20 students. So we polled 20 students, and those are the results, the fictional results, the made-up results that we came up with. So to figure out the percentage for each, we're going to divide the frequency into the total. And we can represent that using a fraction. So 3 out of 20, 12 out of 20, 1 out of 20, 4 out of 20, and 0 out of 20. And we can load those into our calculator, divide the top number, or do 3 divided by 20, and then each of those will give us a percentage. And so for country, that's 15%. Rap is 60%. That's a strong majority in our fictional poll. Classical is 5%. Rock is 20%. And jazz is 0%. Okay, so we've completed number 2, which was to do a survey of our classmates, and we did a pretend survey. I'm just going to label this as number 2. There we go. And that was A, 2A. So B is sketch a circle graph. All right, so I'm going to draw a circle. Actually, I'm going to make my circle a little bigger so that you can see it a little better. Like that. I'm going to put a dot in what I think is the center. So when we're thinking about circle graphs, it can be a little easier to display the information, figure out how we're going to display it, by dividing it into quarters. So I'm just using my highlighter here to very lightly divide my pie graph into quarters. You can do that really lightly with a pencil, and maybe we could just erase those marks afterward. So I'm going to take a look at my table here, and I notice that rap is 60%. Well, if rap is 60%, that means I'm going to be coloring in a little more than half of my table. So that's about correct. I'm kind of guessing. So I'm going to color that in. And we'll call this the rap piece, which is a little larger than half. And we'll label it as 60%. Okay, let's then take a look. Okay, so we also have a 20% here and a 15%. So they're very similar. Then we have a 5%, which is quite a bit smaller. So the 15 and 20 are really similar. So what if I do something like that and that? Nah, I think 5% is even smaller than that. Like that. And I think, looking at that this one's a little bigger. So I'm going to call this one rock. And rock was 20%. Oops. And then this one that's a little smaller than the 20%. That is country, and that is 15%. That leaves this little wedge. And that little wedge is only 5%. So the last step here is we need to create a legend. So the way it's typically done is you have little boxes, and little boxes show you the color of that category. So we have country, rap. I'm going to color these boxes in afterwards. Classical, rock, and jazz. And then I'm just going to color each of these in with their respective colors. So let's see, country was blue. Rap at 60% is green. Classical at 5% was yellow. Oops, wrong color there. Okay, so classical is yellow. Rock was 20%, so that's blue. Oh, sorry, that's not blue, that's red. There we go. And then jazz, we didn't have any data for, so I'm going to make that one gray. Now, another thing you can do if you don't have access to colors is you can do these little call outs. And so we can say this is rap, this is country, this is rock, this is classical. And for the 0, we can just pick a line. Or sorry, for jazz, we can just pick a line because the line represents 0. So there we go. So that was a fair bit of work. So remember, when you're working through taking the notes, you can always pause the video and make sure you've got some really good notes in the end. Give yourself the time to be able to do that. Now I noticed, see how there are these quarter markings I put in? I can just try to clean that up a little bit. It's not going to be perfect. That's about as good as I can get it. Hey! Okay, so good job. Good work, everybody. That brings us to the end of lesson 2, and we're going to move on to lesson 3.